What's up, financial genius? Kris Krohn here. Check it out. I've got my book, The Straight Path to Real Estate Wealth, that I'm releasing on audio here on YouTube for free. Now, this is a book all the way back 2010. So I wrote it a while ago. I recently had it updated for the brand new economy. This tells the story of how I became financially free at the age of 26, the same year I graduated college. When everyone else was just starting their career in life, I basically was ending my career because I had a portfolio of homes that paid me a very real $12,000 a month. And you know what? That bought me the freedom to not need a job. But more importantly, it gave me back my most important asset, time. Time to be with my loved ones, my wife, my daughter at the time, my family. I've got 4 kids. I've been financially free now for over 15 years. And it all started with a very specific strategy that I define in this book. Now, when you read this book, or I should say listen to it, I'm gonna tell you right now what makes it very special is that of all the known real estate strategies out there, I believed back then that there had to be one that required the least time, the least effort, the least risk, and yet would make the most money. And you know what? I found that strategy. I tested my theory on it. 25 homes later, I had my 6-figure residual income. Everything changed. If I lost everything today all over again, I've got a strategy that I can go back to build wealth any time that I want. But I'll also tell you that since then, I have gone on to help my investors and partners purchase thousands of properties to the tune of over 6,000 homes. We've done over $1 billion worth of real estate. And it all started with something that you can do yourself in your backyard. So this is a how-to manual on the #1 strategy of how anyone can get started in the game of real estate. Enjoy. Psst, by the way, I recorded this a long time ago. I was a kid in diapers is kind of what it kind of felt like. I've gone on to write several books since, and so I think my voice has matured a little bit. So enjoy the book in my original voice as a teeny bopper, crushing it financially in real estate. Oh, it's me again. I forgot one more thing. I didn't do just a traditional reading of the book. I actually pulled experts, guests, people that know from personal experience how well this works. I brought them into my world. And when I read it, but I also turned it a little bit more into a discussion, which means it's not just the book. It's the book plus additional information that you can't get from just reading the physical copy alone. People over the years have gone on to say, oh my gosh, I love the way that you dialogue, brought in an expert and had those conversations. So guess what? Enjoy those bonuses as well.
The Straight Path to Real Estate Wealth by Kris Krohn. Narrated by Kris Krohn. Also narrated by Stephen Miller, who will be playing Kris Krohn. Ladies and gentlemen, Kris Krohn.
All right, how's everybody doing tonight? Now listen, we're going to read this book a little bit different in this audio series. And here's the deal, guys. I love listening to audiobooks. And in fact, it's my preferred way of learning. And I've got to tell you that so often people go for a perfect read and then you lose something in the way of personality. Listen, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to precursor this. I'm going to screw up. I'm going to miss words and I'm not going to rewind and do it over again. What I'd like you to get is a really good feel for me. And I'm lazy. And I'd like to make this production go a little bit faster, a little bit easier and give you kind of real flavor. Now, this is going to be fun. Before I launch into the introduction, I'm going to introduce a couple of my friends that have actually been instrumental in bringing this book forth. We've created a company in the last few years called reic, Real Estate Investment Companies. It's changed hundreds of lives, but it all started with changing our lives individually in the beginning. So my dear friend, Stephen Miller, let me introduce him first because he's one of the founders of reic. He moved his entire family from Florida as the first individual to get started with me on my path after I purchased a number of real estate investments.
How's everyone doing? I've known Kris for 10 years, a little over 10 years now, I guess, actually. We met in Germany, doing some work over there. And when we came back, we hit it off such a great time in Germany. We're great friends, hit it off really, really well. And when we came home, we had always kind of wanted to go into business with each other, never knew exactly what we were going to do. I went my way, moved down to Florida. He went his way up to Washington. We both started going to school. He moved to Utah to finish school, and I was, again, finishing school in Florida. And I started getting calls every 6 months or so to say, that basically went like this: Stephen, I've tried a lot of other people. I know that what I need is your help. I know what you can do. I need you to come out here and help me out. And I would say, no, I can't do it right now. called me up 6 months later, kind of the same thing would happen. And no, I couldn't do it. Well, eventually.
Well, dude, they're always exciting conversations and you get like hyped up and you're like, yeah, dude, I'm going to do it. It's going to be totally awesome.
They were good conversations, yes. But it just wasn't the right time. I mean, I was having kids. By the time I had graduated college, I had my third child, and I had renovated a home, and I was building a second home. And anyway, finally, the last call I got was the right time. I had actually been laid off from a job. And I was like, okay, if there's any time that's going to work, it's going to be this time. So I packed up my family. We moved out to Utah, and I started helping Kris manage his homes and the homes of his partners and those different accounts, selling homes on the compassionate financing system that we'll talk about a little bit later. And the experience has been amazing. And we've been able to help literally hundreds of families now, starting from really Kris, a few of his partners, and myself. And now we've been able to help literally hundreds of families, not only in our community here, but now nationwide. It's been amazing.
Thank you, Stephen. My other dear friend that also got started with us very, very early on, Kevin Clayson, who actually we also met in Germany. So we were all friends there over a decade ago. Amazing that it was so long ago. And yet here we all are now standing with these 7-figure net worths, and life has changed dramatically in the last couple of years. Kevin, your story.
How incredible it is that I get to be here with you guys tonight and we get to introduce this to the world. I mean, my gosh, what a great opportunity. I am passionate about what we do because what it's done for me. You know, I would have had no idea when we were all standing on a bridge between Germany and Poland, ringing in year 2000, that we would be standing here today recording Kris's audiobook. Guys, my story is, hey, it might be your story. Look, I did it right. I moved from California, lived in Germany for a while. Then I was going to school. I was studying political science. I thought I wanted to go to law school. I had no idea what I was going to do. I graduated, decided to get into finance because, heck, people make money in finance. Well, yeah, I started making money, about $24,000 a year, but I started living like I was making a lot more than that. Well, I was at this job. I thought I was doing pretty good, but something didn't feel right, so I left it. And I became self-employed, and I started working as a mortgage broker. Around that time, I got a phone call. It was a phone call from my good friend, Stephen Miller, who was saying, hey, what's going on? I'm coming to Utah. We get to hang out again. I said, you're coming to Utah? What are you doing in Utah? He said, I'm finally going, and I'm working with Kris Krohn. I said, you mean Kris? You mean our buddy from Germany who's supposed to be making all this money and probably taking advantage of people? Because how else can you make money? You're going to go work for that guy?
Nice mindset, Kevin.
Hey, that's where I was. Not anymore, right? And Stephen said, yeah, I'm going to go work for him. I said, well, what's Kris doing? And Stephen said, I don't know, but it's something with real estate and leveraging and something, but it sounds great. And I said, okay, well, awesome. I'll see you when you get here. Well, then Stephen and Kris, they cornered me and they said, Kev, we want you to be a part of this. We are doing some amazing things for people already in the community, and we want you to be a part of this. And I said, well, it just so happens I know a little finance, I know some mortgages, and Kris invited me to be a part of the company and doing mortgages for people. And guess what? I left everything I had going on in my life to create new possibility to come aboard with Kris Krohn and Stephen Miller. And you know what happened? My life changed. I remember a conversation after I first learned about what you guys were doing. We were sitting at the Village Inn or at Denny's having breakfast at like midnight, and you were telling me all about what it was, and I started getting excited. I started saying, wow, I've learned all of these financial things in my life, and you're putting the pieces together. Then Kris, you took me to a home you were building, a 9,000 square foot home you were in the middle of building, and I thought, if this is what Kris is doing at 20-something, I need to be a part of it. Kris, you took me aside and you said, Kev, this is what I'm doing. And if I'm in your shoes, this is what I would do if I were you. Well, I took you up on it because I wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself. And now we've been changing lives, transforming people's financial and emotional and spiritual lives on this journey. And I just am so eternally grateful to you and Stephen for being my friends and allowing me to join you on this journey. And I'm so excited for everybody listening right now. Get ready to rock and roll because that's what's going to happen.
Thank you both for being here this evening as we get ready to rock the world with this message. Now, as I launch in the introduction, I want to make a couple of things really clear. REIC or my systems, my truths, they're not true for everyone. They're not for everybody. I can't know honestly what's best for you, but this much I can promise that if you're open to powerful financial transformation, You're going to find something here along the path. Now, whether it's with me or whatever else you come to recognize as truth for you, I'm happy if I can play a small role in getting you on your way. Let's talk real estate. You've probably already seen dozens of books about how to get rich in real estate. So you know what? I'm going to slash through the clutter with this bold claim. The real estate system you'll learn in this book takes the least time, effort, and risk, creates the most value for society, and generates the greatest returns for more investors in any given market than any other system you will ever encounter. I'm confident that this system is the best form of real estate investing. That is both a promise and a challenge. And I challenge anyone reading this book or listening to this audio series to present any other form of real estate that could be better when you actually completely get this comprehensive comparison down. Now listen, I don't want to be arrogant. I simply value your time. You've got important things to do with your life, and so do I. And reading this book represents an important investment in both time and effort. And I recognize and I appreciate that. I want to make your experience as worthwhile as possible. Ultimately, I want your investments to pay actual dividends as you become a profitable real estate investor. In fact, that's one of the core differences you'll come to appreciate between my system and any other out there that I'm aware of. Now, to date, REIC, or real estate investment companies, which I created to leverage my proprietary straight path investment system, has helped hundreds of clients invest profitably in real estate. And not a single person in one of the worst real estate economies we've seen in decades has ever taken a loss. Our average investor enjoys more than a 50% annual rate of return. We purchase homes with 15, 20+% equity, often $50,000 of increased net worth, and we're creating cash flows, real residual incomes. Now listen, if real estate investing can be this profitable, then why do so few investors succeed? I'm just scratching my head on this. First of all, it's because real estate investing is hard. If you go to my website, straightpathrealestate.com, that's the book website, and my company's website is reicglobal.com. And one of the core messages you're going to find when you go there is me on some video camera saying, real estate sucks. It's hard. It's difficult. It's not fun. Most people do real estate just because they want to make the money, not because they have the passion for it, not because it's who they are, and it's certainly not what they love doing. So that presents a conundrum for us. I'm here offering advice on how to make a lot of money in real estate, already knowing you're going to sabotage your results if you try and do it on your own. So this book is about a shortcut path to real success by leveraging the right system, the right team, and the right people. Now, most investors are unaware that there are many options out there other than two when it comes to real estate. Choice number one is an attempt to actually invest on your own using the little knowledge and experience that you have. And such investors almost always choose systems and strategies that require too much time, too much effort, too much money, too much risk. And perhaps you get burned up with rentals or flips. You dabble in short sales and foreclosures until you realize how hard it is to manage these investments. They may over-leverage themselves and lose everything. And when they fail, you become disillusioned and give up on real estate altogether. Your second choice is that you pay some guru $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $50,000 to get taught. And yet, after all that education and after their system, you're not left with much in the way of hand-holding or doing. And I'm just going to tell you right now that knowledge unapplied in real estate, that's not going to make you a whole lot of money. So whether you're trying to do it on your own and possibly really messing up, or whether you're paying for all these programs, always learning but never doing, in my experience, neither of these two paths ever lead to consistent, sustainable results or success. Most people first get really excited about real estate because they see others succeed. They start reading books, you're attending seminars. You become convinced that real estate will help you become wealthier, quicker, with less effort, money, and knowledge and risk than any other paths. And indeed it can, but you've got to start with the right system. And that's what this book is about. It's about a belief that there is a single best way of making money in real estate. Now, REIC real estate investment companies, Kris and Sherilyn share an experience here in the book that I want to share with you. Quote, "We decided that we wanted to start investing in real estate about a year ago. After trying a few network marketing companies, we realized that wasn't going to be our path to wealth. We didn't know how to do real estate. We just knew that there was money to be made. We started by purchasing books and materials and reaching various systems and educational programs. Turn the page. Wanting a more hands-on approach, we signed up for a $2,000 program. And after we mastered that introductory package, they upsold us to their $20,000 package, which we paid willingly, thinking that it would give us the tools, the resources we needed to succeed. They were supposed to show us exactly how to do each step and to really help us along the way, but it never happened like they promised. In fact, they didn't even return any of our phone calls. Now, they go on to say that after this disappointment, we met Kris Krohn, who introduced us to his Straight Path system. That's me, by the way. We started warming up as Kris and his associates counseled us on a few decisions. We had been looking at a duplex with the goal of living in one side, renting out the other. It sounded like a good idea to us, but Kris's team pointed out a number of flaws that we were unaware of. One of them being that we were paying more than market value for the property. They pointed out all the reasons why it was a risky deal, and that's when we realized that Kris and the Straight Path system were the real deal. REIC actually invested in real estate instead of just teaching us about it. And it's weird, I'm reading this because I'm like, oh, I'm actually remembering this meeting in my head where they sat down and they thought they were making this really wise choice. And actually, after we got down to it, this property was going to set them back for years. Now, the story goes on. Soon after joining REIC, we purchased our first investment with over 15% equity position that immediately increased our net worth by $37,000. And since we were renting at the time, we moved into this first home. Our plan then is to refinance it as soon as we can use that money to purchase our next investment. And in addition, our home has an apartment that we're fixing up to meet legal requirements, and we'll rent it out to help offset the mortgage. The Straight Path is a slower game plan than a lot of the hyped systems we've seen. And we've really learned to appreciate that because there's a much smaller margin of error, much lower risk. What sets it apart from other systems we've researched and worked with is that it's actually based on implementation. Awesome. Thanks, Kris and Sherilyn. Okay. Now, what if all the reasons for real estate investing failure could be eliminated? What if there was a program that actually provided both educational and hands-on implementation? What if there was a coherent, comprehensive, predictable system that anyone could apply to succeed in real estate without any risk of failure and hassle that's dragged down so many investors in the past? What if there was one real estate investment system that was better than any other? How could it change your life? I feel blessed to have discovered such a system, which I call Straight Path Real Estate. And that's exactly what I want to share with you. Now, the name of this system and the reason why I call it this, it comes from a verse in the King James version of the Bible. Matthew chapter 7, verse 13 and 14, it says, "Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go thereat. Because strait is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, but few there be that find it." End quote. Now, I'll leave the pursuit of eternal life up to you, okay? That's not the purpose of the program. My purpose really is to apply this metaphor to real estate and prove that there is one sure, best way of doing real estate, accumulating wealth for the vast majority of investors. And though few people really ever find it, everything else is a broad and crooked path that leads to destruction, or in other words, investment failure. Now, the passage continues, verses 15 through 20, it says, "Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits." Okay, that's the phrase that I really want to focus on here. "Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down, cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits ye shall know them." And that's been one of the coolest things for me is I didn't even know when I got started on this path that the fruits that the system would yield would be so powerful. And ultimately, it had to come together in this book because I really honestly believe that the message of this book, not only has it had a profound impact on so many lives, but it's going to continue to do so. Now, removing the religious context from these verses, just consider the imagery. It's highly applicable because there are so many competing theories of real estate investing. Some gurus make far more money selling knowledge than they do actually investing in real estate. Their teachings can be benign yet ineffective, or even harmful and misleading. Many forms of real estate investing result in a little more than stress, heartache, financial loss. And discernment comes when we examine the fruits of all the teachings and all the strategies. Now, I've already spoken of the fruits of the straight path real estate system. My purpose in writing this book and sharing it with you audio is to invite you to step onto that undeviating path so that you too can enjoy the fruits that me and so many others have enjoyed. This biblical metaphor actually will help you fully grasp the power of the real estate system that you are in the process of learning about. It's the claim I've made in the first paragraph of this introduction that's true. And if it is, then you can reject the flaws of all other real estate investment strategies and leverage a perfected, foolproof system. You can slice through the complexity, the risk, and skip right to the core of safe, sustainable profits. You can abandon past failures, financial detours, embrace hope, take diligent action. You can retire far sooner than you thought possible and fund your dreams by building a healthy real estate portfolio.
6 core elements of investing in search of the best form of real estate.
Oh, Stephen, thank you for this is just great.
All of these successes are possible if you stay on the right path. The path is so straight and narrow and carries such strict guidelines because there are many critical aspects of investing to account for. Specifically, there are 6 core elements to consider when comparing investment strategies.
1.
Number 1, time. 2, effort. 3, risk. 4, service. Does it create sustainable value for people? Number 5, market conditions, or will it work in any market? And number 6, profit. Each of these elements is critical to successful investing. More important, however, is the fact that your decisions and strategies must account for all of them collectively.
So let's just pause on this because this is so critical for me because Stephen has actually had a chance to go through and compare nearly every real estate strategy out there. That was part of my privileged situation in life that I got exposed to all these different strategies. These are the 6 that I really came down to, which is how much time does it take? How much effort? How much risk? Is it actually providing a value for people? Does it work in any market? And is it profitable? And I think it's worth pausing on those. In fact, for the rest of this chapter, we're going to be diving into these and talking about them and a special kind of hybrid methodology because when you look at the different key factors contributing to the effectiveness of the straight path system, it is based on a hybrid methodology that I used in creating it. I've voraciously studied every form of real estate available to most investors, including rentals, fixer-uppers, flips, foreclosures, lease options, spec building, land development, multi-unit, commercial. In fact, I've done most of these strategies, and I identified the strengths and the weaknesses of each one of them. Then I researched and analyzed how to incorporate the strengths of each one and at the same time, eliminating the weaknesses. The result was the straight path system. So to give just a few examples, the straight path system incorporates the cash flow aspect of rentals, but eliminates the stress and hassle of property management. It helps investors buy properties with foreclosure discounts, but without foreclosure complexity. It assimilates the strengths of lease options, but rejects the exploitation commonly present in lease optioning. This hybrid approach ultimately is explored in greater detail throughout this book. Now, the foundation of the straight path system is what I want to talk about next. Of course, I didn't start my real estate investing career with the clarity that I have today. In 2002, I was attending college and actually wanted to become a doctor. Steve, do you remember that?
No, I totally remember that.
And like most people, I actually wanted a high-paying job. I thought it'd be an honorable career. I thought it would bring financial security and fulfillment. Those were some of my choices for doing that.
And you love blood.
Actually,
Edward?
No, that didn't work so well for me.
Okay.
So I was entrenched into that whole concept of get good grades, go to college, get the job security kind of mindset. And while I was in college, a few things happened that really altered my perceptions and set me on a new path. Pushing gurneys in the emergency room, for example, for an internship was exciting, but after a year of painful science and math courses, the realization really sunk in at the monumental task ahead of me. I'd be in school for another 13 years, and I really didn't even enjoy my classes. And I think, man, how many people actually go to college these days, not even doing what they enjoy or what they love? They're doing it for prestige or for money or because it's what their parents want. And they're not really clear with what they want in life. So, since I started college with almost no money, I wanted to avoid as much debt as possible. So I got a job doing telemarketing. And my first year on the job, I was doing all these phone sales, and I spoke with actually a couple thousand people, all of whom were asking me how to become financially successful. Most of them were over 40 years old. They had attended college. They had good jobs. They also had a lot of debt, though. And through my conversations with them, I could really begin to sense their fear and their desperation. I really realized that I was heading along the same path that they had already taken. And I had wondered whether I was destined for the same fate. And their desperation began to transfer to me. And that was like my experience every day coming home from work. So it was during this time that I stumbled across a quote from the Social Security Board. And it really uprooted my financial paradigm. Quote, at age 65, 75% of all Americans are dependent on relatives, family, and charity. 23% are still working, and only 2% are financially independent. And I was totally stunned by this. I'd be in school for over a decade. I'd spend years paying off school loans, all in a career that wasn't fulfilling to me, and I'd still have a 98% chance of financial failure. Man, I was determined to discover what the successful 2% of people were doing. And you know what? I realized that the most financially successful individuals had created forms of residual income, meaning they got paid whether they were physically working or not. The rest of us, well, we've got to keep working if we want to keep earning. I'm really clear with this, just to step off script for a second. Poor people, rich people, what's the difference? Well, poor people work for money, and rich people have their money work for them. So I personally vowed that I was going to get out of this rut. I began a quest. And my quest was not to do real estate, actually. It was to how to create a residual income. Now, that year I married my beautiful wife, Colleen. And with many responsibilities of a newlywed, my desperation actually began to hit an all-time high with this job and with the experience I was having. I was working full-time. I was going to school full-time, and I was trying to maintain a healthy marriage. And I remember one day I arrived home from school, and I found Colleen in tears. She had been reconciling our bank accounts and was completely overwhelmed to discover that we didn't have nearly enough money to pay for rent, groceries, tuitions that were coming up in just a few weeks, even though we'd been surviving on ramen noodles. Now, as I witnessed Colleen's panic, something really shifted inside of me. And maybe for those of you listening, you know what I'm talking about. I had done the math. I added everything up, and what I concluded was that I wasn't going to be a doctor. This wasn't actually going to be my way of creating what was missing in my life. In fact, it wasn't even something that I think I would have even enjoyed. So at this time, Clint and I were attending a community class, and it was designed to strengthen new marriages. And I remember very vividly the 5th class that we took. We were listening to a successful local businessman, and he was just talking about basic finances and budgeting, which of course is what we were struggling with at the time. And he also mentioned offhandedly real estate investing. And I listened intently to his presentation and felt strongly that I wanted to talk with him afterwards. In fact, I approached him, and I confessed that I knew almost nothing about real estate investing, but that I did want to learn. And so he recommended a book to me. It was difficult for me to find. I had tracked it down in a library and read it within 3 days. And I can't really tell you too much today about the information that was in there. I remember that it was dated, but I do remember how many millionaires had been created. American millionaires had actually made their money through real estate, and that made a lasting impression on me. And that was enough for me. I found my path. I just needed to do something about it. And I remember one day coming home from work in college, and I said, Colleen, I know what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be a real estate investor. And I remember she said, that's a funny major. Anyway, though. So this is what started my path to 407 different deals up into the time that I actually started working on this book. And today, we're just accumulating real estate in massive, massive amounts.
I began studying everything I could find on the subject and interviewing as many people as possible. In April 2003, after another hectic day of morning classes and afternoon telemarketing, I was on my way home and felt an intuition to take a different route. I did so and stumbled across a small bungalow-style home with a for sale by owner sign in the front yard. I stopped my car and approached the house. That moment is forever etched in my mind. The sky was a beautiful blue. brushed by distant clouds. Strangely, it was snowing lightly, and the snow was falling sideways. It felt to me as if the odd weather were some kind of sign.
Dude, I gotta tell you, that was like the weirdest thing. I'm driving my red Honda down the road, and it's so weird that moments like this that change your life, you don't forget them. I'm sitting in the front seat, and I'm actually driving away from my house, and like the book says, I just felt this impression to drive a different way, and to hardly see clouds in the sky and to see it snowing sideways. I'm not from Utah, but that was really strange weather for that time of year. And it was right at that time that my head jerked to the left, and I'll never forget seeing that tiny little house and that sign in the front that said "For sale by owner." And man, it was just like I got hit with this bolt of lightning that said, "And turn around, and that's the house you're going to buy." So I walked up to the front door. I remember feeling totally nervous. I didn't really have any clue about what I was going to do or say. I really didn't have any training. But I do remember scrambling in the back of the car, Stephen, for a pad of paper, pen. I knew I was in college, right? I was young, and I wanted to appear professional. And so I got that out of my car. I carried it along with me so that I could look more official. I knocked on the door, and the owner opened up, and I explained that I was interested in buying her home. She gave me a quick tour. She actually wasn't a very nice lady, to be honest. I did my best to sound knowledgeable, though, even though I was fairly clueless. And after the tour, I inquired about the price, and she said, "Well, I'm asking $110,000. And that sounded good to me. I mean, I had no idea what wasn't good or what was. I had no idea about this whole buying at discounts thing, right? This was all so new for me. But I do remember saying, "Would you consider taking $100,000? And she said, "No." She snapped. And so then I said, "Okay, well, I guess I'll buy it for 110." And that was the end of the negotiations. And I didn't even know at the time that what had transpired was the beginning of a massive journey that would lead to hundreds of homes. I actually will never forget going home and telling Clint. I mean, I've actually, just to get off here for a second, I remember I've had this experience many times with Clint. I remember the first time I ever bought anything on eBay, it was a car, a BMW.
I remember that.
Oh my gosh, she was going to skewer me alive. So I come home and I'm like, "Honey, we're buying a house." And you can imagine how well that went over, especially when she actually had a chance to take a look at it. Because I got to tell you, the thing was a dump.
Yeah, we did some work on it.
Yeah, we did. Where was I in the book here? Oh, here we go. I left in a daze, unsure about what had just transpired. I arrived home. Here we go. And I talked to my wife. Gratefully, she was supportive. That's true. And after an extended period of hyperventilating and freaking out, a month later, we were proud owners of this first home. We lived in it for a couple of years, put some work into it. Stephen, you did that as well. Yeah. And then we sold it for $55,000 profit. And although I was too inexperienced at the time to realize it, we had really bought a home with a significant discount. And that's actually what had made us that first big chunk of change that led to the second home, the next home, and the next home. And you know what? I really still remember driving home in a daze after depositing the check from the new owner of that bungalow. Totally amazed. Because in one transaction, I had made twice the amount that I did in an entire year at my full-time job. I mean, I had solved all of my immediate problems, and my wife felt totally secure. But more importantly, I'd just taken my first steps towards financial independence, and I was on the super high feeling. That was the first transaction. It turned the lights on inside of me because I started believing if you can do it once, Kris, you can do it again, even though I'd never done it before. And that is ultimately what led to 407 profitable real estate deals to date. And those are deals I've personally been involved with, that I've owned. And, you know, there's also been a number of blunders, which I'm now qualified to help you avoid. That's also part of the book here. So through my success, my failures, the School of Hard Knocks, I developed the Straight Path system. And that's what's created millions of dollars of wealth for hundreds of families. Now I spend my life teaching others how they can enjoy the same success while continuing to invest in more real estate than ever before. I built real estate investment companies, REIC, because I was making so much money in real estate that many family members, a lot of friends, and soon strangers began asking me what I was doing. And I knew that I needed to create a way to share my knowledge and my system with them. I tell people, you don't have to stick your head in a garbage can to know it stinks. You don't have to spend years and throw away thousands of dollars making the same mistakes that I've made. You can avoid the broad paths, the crooked paths that ultimately lead to those financial pitfalls. The Straight Path system has been tried proven, and perfected through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of transactions in the worst economy. Its fruits are real, tangible, and let me see if I can read this word, incontrovertible.
Yeah, he wrote this book.
It works in every market. When properly applied, it's never lost anyone a single penny over time. It's the straightest, it's the surest path to real estate wealth, and it is available to everyone. Furthermore, it can be applied by every individual, no matter your circumstances, from college students with no job history or credit to bankruptcy filers. The system has solutions for every possible scenario, complete with a detailed step-by-step set of instructions. That's what this book is, guys. It is the how-to, not the hype. To clarify, while I do claim that the Straight Path system is the best form of real estate investing, the system isn't absolutely flawless or completely hassle-free. Like anything, it has challenges. Things don't always work out as planned. However, on the whole, it's eliminated the risk of unforeseen circumstances far better than any other strategy, any other system I've ever encountered. I invite you to join me and hundreds of people on this path that's created financial independence that you crave. There's another one. You can beat the statistics and be one of the few that lives a life of peace, security, happiness, fulfillment, and ultimately contribution. With that target fixed in your mind, the Straight Path system is your arrow. Follow it precisely, and I guarantee you'll hit the bullseye every time. Before you get started on the path, it's critical that you proceed with the right mindset. That's going to lead us from the introduction into chapter 1. And I'm just going to say this right here, right now, as I end this, because I'm feeling this with this massive passion. The difference between poor people and rich people in my mind is real simple. Poor people play real small and real selfish. Think about it. In the name of security, which is an illusion, you will fight your entire life to take care of you and your family. And it will never be enough. And hence, you will never be enough. And hence, that is the legacy you're leaving your children. So that when you retire, you need to rely on charity and children and other people and ultimately continue being selfish. In fact, your entire life will be given to selfishness. However, if you can live a passionate life and create massive amounts of wealth, the difference is not a subtle one. You will actually have the ability to transform the lives of numerous people, possibly hundreds, thousands, or millions of people. And that's the difference for me between the pride of the poor and the pride of the rich, is that the pride to be, the sin to be prideful has a massive cost. And that cost is selfishness. And it means you never really have a chance to do anything more than drop off and bake some brownies for your neighbor down the street. Listen, this book is about living a tremendous life, an extraordinary life. And if that's the life that you crave and want, I promise you, you can have it, but you've got to make that decision. Make it now. We're going to get right into the next chapter on this crucial mental shift, overcoming America's broken financial paradigm.